Okay. Hey, Cyrus here. So today's topic, if you're not in the other side of the world, is um, basically a closer look at mental mediumship. And so I hope this is going to be helpful for everybody, especially people trying to make sense of mental mediumship and trying to make contact with deceased loved ones. I have some new thoughts and perspectives about that I hope will help, those of you subscribers who are watching and those of you in the class. So as usual, please mute yourself if there's like noise and stuff in the background. And you can interrupt me during presentations if you have a burning question. Just like in real life, if this was a classroom and you want to raise your hand, I just can't see you because I don't have all the, I don't want to, it interrupts the slides if I have all the Brady Bunch boxes of people's faces. But you can interrupt if it's something that's a burning question. Okay, so let me pull it up. So mental mediumship and new theories about it. All right, so let's jump into this. So there's been lots of new perspectives diving into mental mediumship recently with the passing of Sean Helms. And I'm sure most of you heard or saw, maybe some of you didn't because you might not be like involved in the group, but the main Afterlife Topics group, the main moderator beside myself has been for over a year, Sean Helms, who's a friend of mine, cool guy. I picked him out. I'm like, hey, would you like to join my team here? And then he was found dead a few days ago, multiple stab wounds, laceration on his neck. And so this has been, really difficult on me. Just, for one thing, just almost just a morale, the morale hit of something like that happening. It's like, what's going on here? Why, what happened to my friend, my admin, was he murdered? Why did this happen? And then also it's like, how can I feel normal again? Just in the class, or I'm sorry, in the group, without Sean around. So it is this kind of weird thing, but it's also brought me to a point of delving into mental mediumship and attempting to use this as a way to pin down information about the situation with Sean, which I'm not talking about yet at this point openly. So it's the ongoing thing that I'm using multiple mediums to attempt to corroborate information. But I will say it's been a very different situation than most endeavors like this. And it's been very weird. And I'm not going to say one way or the other, like how Sean died, but it's been strange because I'm now on 4 different mediums, about to be 5 different mediums, and it's a very strange pictures forming about the situation. But it also has got me thinking a lot about mental mediumship and how mental mediumship can work best for us and such. One quick thing is, I'll talk to you guys after the class before it ends, but I may want to put this class up on the main YouTube channel. But if you have any objections to that, if you don't want to be seen, let me know and I won't do that. Or you can hide the video screen and then continue, talking in the class if you're self-conscious or anything like that. But anyway, there's a chance I may put this one up on the main YouTube page because this might be really valuable information for people. So we'll see. I just want to fit that in there real quick. And so if I do put this on the YouTube channel and you're watching, then please help out and hit that subscribe button. Let us know that you care. So the questions this has brought up, like what exactly is mental mediumship? Are there misconceptions? And what is the best way to approach the subject to get the best results? How do we avoid pitfalls, scams, and other issues with mental mediumship? So what we know. So mental mediumship is the ability for powerful intuitive to connect, quote, with a deceased person. And so I would see this as connecting your consciousness to their consciousness. I would also argue that this is part of the normal way of communication with between people on that side, or it's one of the methods of communication when you are naturally in a higher state of consciousness. So for us, it's this mystical thing, but for them, it's a quite a normal thing that goes on. So it's essentially like, a person here is learning the skill set that's used on that side. Many accept this ability, and it's popularized on TV shows like John Edwards' Crossing Over, while skeptics claim all mediums are mentalists, which is easily refuted. Mentalists can do some really interesting things, and we have to wonder sometimes, and maybe I can get your guys' opinion, if even mentalism sometimes borders on an intuitive type of element. Like, there's a lot of mentalist tricks, like think of a number between 1 and 10. And real quick, I'm going to go ahead and do a show of hands because I can see you guys on the screen now. How many people here thought of 7? Anybody think of 7? See, I'm a bad mentalist. That's why I could never do this. But if there was a good mentalist, half of you would be thinking 7, because when I said think of a number between 1 and 10, I used my finger and I did da. And so that's supposed to inject the subconscious into your subconscious, the number 7. So I've seen mentalists do that very effectively. Clearly, it doesn't work when I do it.
Well, you did it backwards for us, so that's why.
Oh, okay. So on your guys' screen, it doesn't come up like, because on my screen, that's the, it's not. Yeah, it's weird. It must be like doing some kind of reverse feed or something. I don't know. Or maybe my screen is backwards and then yours is right side. I don't know what's going on. Anyway. So, but it's easily refuted, because there's no way that type of stuff is just going to keep a medium in business indefinitely. I really doubt it. From an outsider perspective, there's a lot of questions asked, and it can become quite confusing. Mediumship can be highly evidential, but also a complete dud. So we should never assume a medium is going to get it all right, and a proper ethical medium should refund your money when they're not able to connect. An unethical medium is the one who can connect with anyone, anywhere, at any time. So you want to talk to Abraham Lincoln, no problem. Abraham Lincoln's right here. You want to talk to Winston Churchill, he's right there. You want to talk to Julius Caesar, he's up there, no problem. This is what they have to say, and they don't. There's no hesitation, no pause. It's just like, whoever you want, I got him, I'll bring him out. And that's a big warning sign to me, because it kind of shows that this is a medium who wants to keep the audience happy, wants to keep the cash flowing in, because they don't have, it's so effortless. And then especially if then what they're saying are just truisms, okay? So Abraham Lincoln is expressing his frustration that he was assassinated, and he's on the other side, and he's wearing a big hat. It's like, obviously that type of thing is not going to be of benefit to anybody. And that's a humorous example, but, we might be relating this to a loved one. Your uncle is in the light, and he's floating there, and he's happy. This stuff that's not neither useful nor accurate about the afterlife. And so this is a percentage of mediums, and this is what you also have to be able to screen out if you want to work with a mental medium, that you're getting somebody who is realistic, knows what's going on, and understands the way it operates. And you can figure that out, I think, pretty quickly. Problem is, you might not know until you've already ponied up the cash. So another ethical medium might be one who isn't demanding upfront payment, so that if you get a bad feeling about the information, you can cancel, close it out early, and then you don't have to pay anything. So, if there's a medium demanding that you pay all this cash up front, I know a lot of credible mediums do that as well, but I personally, just me as somebody who does online business stuff, like, Like if like this has never happened. If I'm editing somebody's book and I'm not going to demand the full payment right away, and or if they don't like the way I'm editing it, then I'll give them the money back. If there are any stipulations toward that, then I think I'd be behaving unethically. So making it work. So when you get a medium, you feel, and I didn't even get into the topic of picking a medium, so I'll squeeze in. I would definitely pick a mental medium who comes out of a circle that you can trust. One example might be the Arthur Findlay College, where they professionally train and verify mediums, and that's out of England. There's Windbridge Institute out of the USA, and then there's other private organizations like out of California. I don't remember all their names off the top of my head. I think there was one called like ARC, like Afterlife Research Club, Council, Committee, or something like that. I don't remember all the names off the top of my head, but there's different organizations. But also staying in touch with Facebook groups. So don't just go with anybody you meet or see. Our friend Political Taco is a fan of using Fiverr, apparently, which kind of makes me chuckle. I guess when you think about it, if you were a medium and you just want to have, make some money and quickly, connect and kind of give half-assed readings to people, Fiverr might be a good venue to do that with. But if you're serious about it, I wouldn't use Fiverr, as a way to do this type of thing. In case you're wondering, Fiverr, it's a website with $5 gigs, so anybody can do it. It's like I'll do a song and dance for you for $5. I'll design a business card for $5, or I'll contact your deceased loved ones for $5. So kind of
get a logo and a reading at the same time.
Right, exactly. And then you'll see all those on Fiverr. It's really funny if you scroll through some. You'll see like astrology readings and that kind of thing. And that's a whole different topic. But okay, so you find a medium that you like. So you want to keep social media presence to a minimal to avoid chances of hot reading. Keep affirmations and reactions to a minimal to avoid cold reading chances. So if you have a public Facebook page and you've just shared all the details about a loved one who has passed, and then the medium, surprise, surprise, comes out with all those details, then even if the medium was legitimate, you're going to spend, the rest of forever feeling suspicious because you'll realize, hey, they could have just snuck on my Facebook. Now, if you make your Facebook private, then it's a lot more complicated because, unless they're a friend of yours, then they would never get that info. Then you go into conspiracy territory. Oh, they must be hiring people to spy on people. And then, that's a lot less plausible. It's a lot easier just to concede, okay, this was real. So you want to keep your Facebook profile private. Sorry, Corey, I think I got to mute you real quick. I'm hearing like wind. You can mute yourself and then unmute if you have anything you want to say. Yeah, so you want to keep your Facebook profile private, which you can do in the privacy settings. You want to be cautious about what you're sharing on big forums, especially if it is afterlife related, where mediums look for customers. I have no doubt whatsoever in my mind that there are mediums who maybe began as real mediums or believing they're real mediums, and then their abilities began to fade. They had to pay bills, and so they got into the habit of just profiling people, getting information, and basically making up readings and justifying it, saying, hey, I'm providing happiness, peace, and closure to this person. They're paying me for it. All is fair. Of course, we know that's not the case. We know that that is highly unethical. So we, of course, have to be very mindful of that, of somebody building a profile on you to create that reading, which they will do through social media. Proper medium isn't even going, like a proper medium will purposely block out information. They won't even be. They won't even. They'll start reading something and then they'll close it off so that they don't get tainted with information. So that's to be the opposite. Cold reading. Okay, to stop the cold reading chances, and this is something I've been practicing as well. You want to make sure that especially if it's on Skype or if it's face to face, you do a poker face. So you don't, just like poker, you don't want to reveal anything or any reactions to anything that they say, and then keep things to a kind of yes or no basis. And this would really mess up a cold reader. So if it was a cold reader, and those who don't know, cold readers are going to elicit information based on subtle tones of your body. And, they'll keep sending, keep fishing with different types of bait until something is a catch, and then they'll play off of that. It's pretty obvious when it happens. There are cold readers out there. But I also, I think the best way to find a cold reader is, call some psychic hotline. They'll probably have a script, and that script involves like cold reading, how to elicit information. So there's some nasty stuff out there. Keep an eye out for evidence and seek this out from your deceased. So most deceased would logically know that very specific, impossible to guess concepts will create the huge positive impact. Vague generalities should be considered a failed mental mediumship session. So if a deceased loved one comes out and says, specifically, or is sending the impression to a medium about like the birch tree and the red swing that you guys used to play on as kids, then this is a real thing that's happening, because there's no cold reading, there's no hot reading in the world that can create that kind of information. So you'll know this is the real thing. And whether the medium is connecting telepathically or just psychically and just gaining impressions of their consciousness, however it is the medium is doing it, you'll know that there's a real thing happening. So you want to you want to look out for that, and hopefully something like that happens. If nothing like that happens, then you may want to try to get a refund. Because unless there's at least that something evidential like that, then you didn't really get a reading. Like what happened is you got a bunch of generalities. And I'd be a big skeptic of this stuff if I hadn't experienced like extreme level specific details of things, which has happened to me, which blows the lid off this subject. So I know mediumship is real. But I would have been really upset if my first experiences had been a bunch of BS. There's a lot of incentive then to find 2 or even 3 mental mediums if they're reputable. So this is stuff that I've been working on lately, experimenting with. I think this is something more people can try to do. So let's say that there's a specific thing that you're connected with somebody with medium 1. Can you tell medium 1 a specific phrase, word, or image that they can pass off to your deceased loved one? And then when you go to medium 2, who has no knowledge of your reading with medium 1, can they cross-corroborate? Now, the most famous case of this happened on a scientific basis. It was called the cross correspondences back in the 1920s or 30s, which involved back then the challenge of mediums on different sides of the planet corroborating information. There was no Facebook, there was no social media, just like, I think, very slow telegram machines. So this was very well documented, and many say it's proof of, like, there's a skeptics who say, where is the proof? So sometimes you can just link stuff about the cross correspondences, but that same concept can still happen today if your mediums are powerful. If your mediums are not so powerful, or they're not creating direct connections, it's just psychic imprints, then this might not work, because they might not be directly communicating with the deceased. So, but if you get the real connection happening, you could do a cross correspondence. So this did occur recently with myself, and I realized this is very important. So I did have some things like this happen that have verified contact with Sean, but I won't, go into those details at this time. In the future, I will. The oddities. So with mental mediumship, there's a lot of questions, confusion about like the afterlife subject that come up, and those are worth getting into, touching on at least briefly. But let me just check the time. I want to make sure I'm not like going over my time. Where is my phone? Okay, where are we? Okay, we're only half an hour in, so I'm going to finish this up in 10 minutes. So mediums say, I see a person, I see a light, I see something over your left or right shoulder. Its ability is over your left shoulder. And so it's like there a golden light hovering over your head. So what does this mean? How does this happen instantaneously? And does this mean your deceased friend or loved one is now just this non-physical thing, an orbital light of glowing energy? But then how come then they can say, Uncle Bob is on the lake, and then there's the family cottage and he's with his wife. And then they say Uncle Bob is over your shoulder and he's like this glowing manifestation. So which is it? So we're back to that old argument again. Like, are they these non-physical, amorphous blobs, or are they solid people on the astral world? And so my answer to that is actually both. So what goes on, and I think this happens very easily with spirit people, with deceased people, is that they can project their consciousness. So what they're doing is, okay, they're on the lake or they're in the cottage, but they're projecting their consciousness to you once they feel that they're being contacted, and that can look like, feel like, or be sensed as like a light, an orb, or something that's floating over somebody. So they're in two places at once, essentially. So I think that kind of clears up that misconception. So it doesn't mean that they are literally that warm energy or whatever they say. It's like when this happens, it's a projection. So they're astral projecting, but they're earth projecting. It's a different type. Another question, why do they communicate in symbology? So a famous one is when I was with a very talented medium, Suzanne Wilson, after my mother passed and my grandmother began coming through. And so my grandmother was trying to communicate who she was coming through. And so she said, I'm getting the impression of jewels, or a jewel. It's a word, it's something that sounds like jewel. I think it's a name that sounds like jewel. She's related to you. I think she's your grandmother. I'm like, well, it's my grandmother, Julia. That's her name, is Julia. And so that's how she got across who she was communicating. And so there is a limitation against verbal communication unless the medium is clairaudient and can receive like direct English words. So when you astral project, you communicate with people on that side, you'll often find there is a combination of verbal telepathic language where they're still using words in a language for specific details, and mental communication usually involving imagery. So they'll say, hey, I saw this great elephant, and as you're saying this, there's this big, big, beautiful elephant that pops into your mind, which is actually what they saw. So they're sending you basically like multimedia, like they're sending that direct into your mind as they speak. And this is normal communication on that side. It's not weird. It's just how, it's like, hey, do you want a cup of Indian tea? And then you have this imprint that beams into your head of the kind of tea that they're going to give you. Then you can look at it and even feel what it tastes like and think, oh, that sounds good. Yeah, I'll take some. So it's advanced communication that is normal for them, that higher advanced entities use. And so that's how they're communicating in this case. But if you only have access to that, you cannot articulate things on a detailed, like on a verbal level, then sometimes I think that this in some ways it's inferior, right? So they have to rely on like playing charades to try to get across what the message is. And so this happens a lot. Next, oddity. How can they be just called up on a dime? How is that even possible? Well, I mean, that's the thing, is I don't think it's always is that straightforward. I think sometimes they're not available to chat. But when they are, it must be kind of like the medium is powerful enough to be sending them a message, and they know that they're being contacted, and then they tune their consciousness over to the medium, and then they'll be able to see what's going on, and they'll see the person they're communicating with, and then they can just tune into that. And so it should in most cases happen almost instantaneously. But I think sometimes they might not even be available. So how is the communication actually occurring? So as I just described, it is a process of telepathy and impressions and higher level communications. And I'll talk more about that. The best explanation. So what is mental mediumship really? So funny enough, I just explained all these concepts in the previous slide without getting to this slide. So this is all the same stuff I just went over. It's like knocks on the door when somebody's trying to contact them. So it's this type of stuff is common for them and rare and supernatural for us. Probably case. So I just explained all this. So I like it a little bit to like getting a ding from a Facebook message when they are connecting on that side. And I want to mention this is in the continual process of discussing misinterpretations. There's the not so comforting theories that you'll see proposed, probably on the more like, I don't want to, not even skeptical, but so much as like the, how do you even describe these guys? The people who go on about simulation theory, or who sidestep around the afterlife being the afterlife, the people who go on about super psi, kind of like the spiritual hipsters, I guess, who want to be different and stand out from everybody else. And you'll hear them say, well, it's not really your loved one, but it's just a consciousness imprint on the universe, and your real loved one is dead, but they left behind this imprint that people tap into. Whatever, it's that spiritual fatalism where they look for anything but the most obvious answer, and then they cling on to that, and then push that, and then ruin people's experiences by having them believe their theory. So it's more nonsense. Even though there might be a grain of truth behind it, because I think we all do have an imprint. A psychic person can tap into that field or the akashic or whatever it is, and so you can pull information out of that. And I think that's actually very true. And this is what he who shall not be Anthony Peake named likes to propose, is these types of theories, which is universal recording of information in the simulation, and that's what your deceased loved ones actually are. And again, it's BS, but there's a grain of truth behind it, because that is I think one way that a medium might be able to connect. But it doesn't mean your deceased loved one is no longer around. It just means that you have somebody who has a psychic connection, not necessarily a true mediumship connection. There's no reason to throw the baby out with the bathwater, which happens a lot in this area. So a big question: so this is a question I have. It's a really big question. It's something that I think is really important. Can two mediums connect with each other? Because if a medium is connecting with somebody on the other side because they've developed that communication method, then technically speaking, two mediums who have developed the ability to connect with people's consciousness in a telepathic and intuitive way should be able to communicate with one another across distances. So have we ever in an experiment attempted to put highly skilled and verified medium A and medium B and have them attempt to exchange information here in this world between each other? So if all these theories are what they are, then that should be possible, but no one has ever done that. So if people are watching this video, that's something maybe to think about happening in the future. If there's a way to facilitate that, I would love to see that done in a blinded scientific way. So misinformation, finally. So unfortunately, many of these unknowns about mediumship have left people with misconceptions, like I just talked about. There is the idea spirits are all knowing or omniscient, can appear instantly. We know that's not always true. About the lacking a physical body or location, we talked about this. Or misinterpreted messages, the medium's imagination, and many other issues muddy the waters big time for everyone or can exacerbate the grief. So somebody who's only practicing partial mediumship or straight up fake mediumship is going to be going off of their imaginations to get information. And sometimes they might not even realize that that's what they're doing, but they're just trying to keep the client happy. So now you have information coming in via some person's imagination. And how is that going to help somebody who's trying to get answers about a deceased person? And so this will just exacerbate the situation, wouldn't it? And especially if it starts becoming false information. So, in that imagination, people start pushing for specifics, and it's like something is brought up that's very sensitive to you, but the medium just made it up, and now what should have been a healing process becomes a very damaging thing because the medium said that Uncle Larry, trying to think of an example here. Like Uncle Larry gave up all of his worldly desires of painting, and now he's flying around on a cloud. And then meanwhile, Uncle Larry, all he ever talked about was going to heaven so he could become a painter. Then it's going to really hurt somebody. It's like, well, now Uncle Larry is just a orb of light or floating around on a cloud, and he doesn't like painting anymore. How could that be? And then you feel crushed. It's like, what happened to Uncle Larry? So the belief the medium has no barriers, weaknesses, and anyone is accessible. So it's the belief that that the medium is all powerful and can access anyone at any time. An honest medium will know when they're not connecting to somebody because that spirit person is not open for business. They have Facebook turned off, astral Facebook turned off without receiving any messages. So this is another reason that you may need multiple mediums. But lastly is the issue of money. Especially from going with multiple mediums, we don't want to go through the life savings with going through mediums. So my opinion is just, I don't think there's much justification to spend more than a couple $100 for a reading. I don't care how high on the hog the medium wants to live. A mediumship session lasts an hour. A popular medium who charges $200 a session could have 3 sessions booked that day, making $600 a day. Okay, that is a substantial amount of money for anybody on any part of the world. So if the medium is charging more than that, then we're going into, in my opinion, an area of greed that could only be offset, I think, if so long as the medium is at least putting some charitable work behind it as well, or offering some services for free. But I don't think that you should be spending more than that. There's a lot of very good mediums who, don't need to drive a Porsche, and, they might charge $50, which is very, very fair because they need to make money. They need to make a living off of what they do so they can commit to it. Just like I'm trying to make a living off of doing this stuff so I can commit to it because, if I am not successful at that, then I have to do some other job, and then this stuff will stop happening as much and won't be as much benefit to people. So I'm going to kill this mosquito. So mediums deserve that as well. So they deserve to make a living. They deserve to make money. And I'd be happy to pay a medium money, but don't let it go out of hand, because I've heard about people dropping $1,000 on a medium. I'm like, what the heck is going on? $1,000? Find 3 fair mediums that are honing their abilities and they're legitimate, and pay them a normal fair amount. I mean, it's not like mediumship has a net cost. It's not like there's an operation cost for using your mind. It's not like they have to go pay their spirit guide a portion of the fee or something. I mean, it's so. That's my opinion about that. Maybe some disagree. What do you think? What is your experience with mental mediums? What are the best practices, and what are your questions about further oddities? I know this went a little bit longer than usual, but I had a lot to talk about, I guess. But we still have 20 minutes left in class, so yeah, I wanted to get all that out there. I've been having a lot of, I should say, positive experiences with mediums in the last few days because of Sean. And but it really got me thinking, like, how do we make this positive? How do we make this work? So anybody here have any thoughts or questions about this? Please just stick it out there.
I've had some interesting experiences.
Oh, sorry. Okay, Corey, then Paula.
Corey, then Paula. Yeah, I've had some interesting experiences. I will say one thing. I haven't had too many. I know this is being recorded, so I'm not going to talk about who it was or who they were. But the good ones have been validated by some experience after the fact. Like, let's say a couple days or a week later, either in a dream state or maybe an astral state. So that's kind of how I judge it, if you will. And the bad ones, well, they're just all over the map. So, but I really haven't done this too much. So I can't say that it's been, but the validation is very important. And even in reading a book, even if I was to read a book about mediumship or mediums that write books on it, it's interesting how there'll be some sort of validation that comes in a week or 2 weeks later. So.
That's really important. Real quick. So when you say like an astral validation, what might that consist of? Hold on 1 second, Corey. Either your connection is failing or my connection is failing. Real quick, can you guys hear me okay? Somebody try to talk.
You seem like you're... Yeah, you seem like you're there.
You're there.
Yeah.
Yeah, still there.
Okay, there. So it might be... was Corey breaking up for anybody else?
You broke up.
I'm breaking up a bit. Okay. So we need to...
Just a little bit.
Diagnose. Okay, so kind of maybe come back to the beginning a little bit since I was missing most of that. So what does an astral validation sometimes consist of?
In this whole experience, it's been interesting for me because she's been very distant. It's always be an adoption. You're not supposed to know me. It's still a secret, yada, yada, yada. And that's kind of interesting. So, and this has happened on a number of occasions, but a week later, a couple days later, after she kind of came around in one or two readings, I'll see an image or get an experience of a person, a lady, sitting in a chair wearing a pink sundress that's completely bald, just smiling at me. And she died of cancer. And, I don't have any way of really recognizing her in a way, but in that experience, that's some validation. I'll give you another example of reading a book on mediumship between a father and a son. And this is a fairly current book. And one of the things those two had together was cigars. And I was kind of on the fence if this was really real. In a dream I had, this was why am I getting cigars? I don't smoke. Okay. So there's sometimes these validations, I think they're validations of, is this real? I was asking the question if this is real. And then these things happen to kind of fill in the gaps of the reading or whatever I'm reading. So that's interesting to me.
Yeah, we got most of that. I think it's my Wi-Fi in India is getting a little bit choppy, but it's mostly working. I wouldn't be surprised if I did get booted, which would boot the video. So if this video gets cut off, if I post it like on YouTube, that's what happened. But yeah, like with me, I was having originally, like, when I had a long session done, I was having like my astral experiences confirmed through the medium that nobody else knew about. So that's like prior confirmation, and there was post confirmation also. So that is a really big part of it, and probably I should have included that even in the presentation, which is some kind of like, if you're attuned to that kind of thing, if you can have astral projection or just astral dreams, if you can get the validation, then that's a big part of it. And I think that people on that side know about that also. Paula, I wanted to turn it over to you now, because you had some things that you were going to mention.
Well, yeah, I have like some readings too. Like probably I consulted 7 mediums since my son passed away, and they were like, good experience. Some that were incredible. Some things also, that events that they told me, the couple of things that happened after 1 week, like Corey said. So that was an incredible validation for me too. And it's just like I never had a really bad experience. They were all like good experience, and except one time, one medium, she was not able to connect with Nicholas. She was just bringing every weird, information, was nothing connecting to Nicholas and my son, and so then she decided to finish the reading early, and she just gave me the money back. So that was pretty honest word. And but yeah, I mean, it was very healing for me when my son passed, and to have like things that they came out that it was impossible, that they couldn't even know it, even searching Facebook or things very, very detailed. So that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a thing with using like many different mediums. And did you get any kind of cross corroboration between the 7 mediums, Paula? Like, did you ever get like medium 2, or I'm sorry, like medium 5, say, when he came through medium number 2? Like, did you ever get any kind of cross verification?
Kind of, but things that they said that, the same things, the different media that said that what Nicholas, was, for example, they saw him, there was on the in Alps, in Dolomite in Italy, and that was incredible. The 2 mediums, they said that they didn't know each other, because when Nicholas he passed, it was in Nice in France with the terrorist attack. And then he was supposed to go after Nice. He was supposed to go in Italy, where my family lives, and they were supposed to go to the Dolomites, to the mountains. So they were supposed to go there for 1 week, and that was really incredible, because how they couldn't know it. I didn't put anything on Facebook. Nobody couldn't know that, and that 2 million they said that. So they saw him hiking at the Dolomites in Italy. So it was like, wow. And so that was like incredible also. So I had very good readings, yeah, I have to say. And other things that they said also. It was a kind of other medium, they said the same things.
Yeah, a really good medium experience can change convert somebody into being a, quote, like woo-woo believer, right? So we've had people who were avowed skeptic, materialist atheists who clung to the idea that all mediums are mentalists, go to a proper medium, and then it just blows the lid off the whole subject, and suddenly they're no longer a skeptic. So what I also want to ask you guys is, was anybody here a skeptic of all of this until they went to a medium? So for anybody here, was a medium the thing that brought you to the other side of the fence?
I'd say absolutely.
Okay. I didn't even know that, Corey. And you're here every week, but I didn't even know that was the thing that changed your opinion.
Yeah, I was watching a lot of stuff and trying to figure out how they were doing this. And really, I guess I didn't put much to it until my best friend died. And then I kind of went off the deep end, I suppose you would say.
Yeah.
So I had to try to figure some stuff out. And I worked at it slowly. The first reading I ever had was the best one. That one was just out of control. But I really haven't had that many. And I think I've told you in the past, I probably won't have really any more because I think the money thing really bothers me. But we'll get to that.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? Well, we can get to that right now. What do you guys think about the money thing? What's an appropriate amount to spend on a medium?
I think I agree with you, like around probably $200 or I'm some good medium that was even less than that especially from England, and they were pretty reasonable, $70, and they had very good deals with them. So yeah,
I think I don't mind that they're charging. I think what I mind about is how they present themselves. They present themselves as being given this gift, right? But if you're lucky enough to be able to afford the gift, okay, then you can participate. And that kind of bothers me. I realize that a lot of them do donate their time and stuff like that to groups and things like that. But, just if you're going to charge a bunch of money, just charge a bunch of money. Don't tell everybody it's a gift and try to act like it's something it really is, I think that's what bothers me.
Yeah, I think, a medium can also be like a completely legitimate medium, but maybe is charging too much money, and then that's questionable. Even if let's say a medium is the greatest medium in the world, but is it ethical to treat that in the same kind of capitalistic fashion that we do everything else? Like, well, I'm the best, and as the best, I should charge $2,000 a reading. Like, I just feel like that this kind of world shouldn't really apply to that because, I'm a free market guy. I am, I'm cool with capitalism. I'm not out, protesting and saying like redistribute everybody's money or anything like that. But I feel like when we're talking about like on the spiritual kind of level, prosperity is great, but there's an excess. And so I think I don't want to name names, but there's like certain mediums on TV. And then you hear about what they do for people who, are in that circle who want to have a prestigious reading with this famous person on TV. And you find out about how much money was actually spent. And it's like, well, this celebrity, like there's never really been like a person on the other side who's like, well, my biggest thing that I'm happy about since I crossed over is how much money I made and how I bought that, $500,000 car and was able to show off to everybody and show how I'm better than everybody else, right? Like that's never been a message that's been brought back from that side, right? So if you have somebody who's making 7+ figures as a medium, like that really bothers me. Because I feel like it's a little bit of a bastardization of what this is all about. You guys have any thoughts about that?
No, I agree.
Who's speaking? Is that Keely?
It is.
Okay, yeah, what's up?
No, I'm just saying I agree, and the better that they think they are or get known, I guess, they just keep charging more and more and more. How is that helping someone I don't know, but I still think charging huge amounts of money that someone just as good would charge $100 or $200 for it. You're taking advantage of your gift or the situation.
And it doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean the medium is not legitimate. It's just that there's this double-edged blade sometimes. And somebody else was going to say something. Might have been John. Might have been Bent. I don't know.
Yeah.
Bent.
Yes. I haven't had a reading like that, but some years ago, 4 years ago, I think it was, I have a friend. He is the organizer and the owner of 2 alternative conferences on the west coast of my country, which is Norway. And he received lots of complaints that he had too many presentations from various mediums during the weekends that they had these conferences. So he asked me if I would like to go in and do an analysis and make a report of 5 of those who were doing these presentations, like channeling messages from the other side. And so I did. And out of these 5, I would only trust in one of them. And I contacted her after this conference, and I asked her how much would she charge. And well, I'm surprised when you say you are willing to accept $200. This woman, she would charge less than $100, and she really came out. I like to think of myself as quite empathetic, so I get what people are lying on. But all the other 4 guys, they had stalls in this conference, and they were selling this channeling all during the weekends, and that's where they made the money actually. And well, they were just coming up with bullshit. I can't go into the details because then we would go on and on and on. But I've never really got reading from that woman. I've been thinking a lot about her, so maybe I should go to her now.
You know, I mean, to me, that's a good amount. I mean, I've done like intuitive life coaching sessions, right? And I'll charge $50, maybe $100, you know, or even kind of leave it up to the client to decide what they want to pay me, depending on like how well I was able to like correct or stick them back on a path toward wherever they want to go in life. And you know, it helps support the work that I do. I mean, I'm certainly, you know, all I'm doing is just trying to offer my perspectives for somebody. And, you know, 50 or 100 seems very reasonable. And if I were a medium, though, I mean, if I actually had that ability, that I would probably be getting booked all the time because there's a much higher demand for mediumship than intuitive life coaching, right? A medium really does have that gift. So you really can make that work as a business if you legitimately have that ability. And then in which case, I mean, if it's $100 a session and then you do a session every day, that's actually, I mean, that's kind of like you making a corporate office salary while, to be frank, only working a little bit. Because, okay, a session's an hour, you know, you have to maybe meditate for an hour, whatever it takes to get you into that state of mind. And then, you know, you can commit the rest of your time to maybe some kind of spiritual work or doing, you know, volunteering time for others. Like there's so many opportunities and things you could do with all that extra time. You could be, you know, maybe doing YouTube videos and spreading information, or, you know, there's many opportunities. You know, if you give somebody on a spiritual path like that the time, that extra time to be able to do stuff, and that could be really great. But I do find it funny, though, when it goes into the excess, because that's not supposed to be a value system of mediums unless it's a totally materialistic enterprise. So, you know, it's, you know, it kind of reminds me of those, you know, those celebrity evangelical preachers that we all get a laugh out of. You know, that they're talking about the gospel of prosperity, which, you know, I just, you know, it's a bit funny. Who else had something they wanted to say? Because Bent was talking, but I think there was maybe somebody else.
The other one that gets me too is when they, when some of the mediums will say, "Oh, they're pulling back now," and it's exactly an hour.
Yeah.
To me, that's just like, you know, really, okay, they got
It's
time
really
down.
funny. You know what's really funny is, look, actually, you know, I've seen a bunch of mediums now, and that hasn't happened to me because I think, for one thing, I'm only picking mediums that I think are legitimate, and also because, like in this thing with Sean, the mediums who are helping are volunteering to help out afterlife topics, to help out this community. So they're willing to volunteer some of their time.
Yeah.
So that, I think, automatically puts them on like a special level, because it shows what their priorities are, that they're willing to contribute back to a community that's trying to spread awareness about the afterlife. That's what we're doing. You guys are the students, but Afterlife Topics, like the group on Facebook is like almost 9,000 people, YouTube page like 1,500. So it's a bigger community, and they recognize that they're trying to give back to the community, and they're perfectly fine with volunteering their time, which I think adds to their credibility. And so, like with these mediums, there's no issues with that. But I'd be very, very suspicious if this was like I was shelling out money. It's like, well, the hour is up, and Uncle Larry is now dissipating back into his heavenly cloud. Well, that's very convenient.
Did I ever tell you about my medium experience? I'm sure I have.
I don't know.
So I went to this lady when I was like 19, and she immediately told me that all my family was going to die in the next 8 years, and I was going to be alone. And it was just so horrible. So then I spent by the time I was 30. So then I spent the next 11 years worrying about everyone dying. And she told me how they were going to die in what order. And obviously nobody died, but it was ridiculous. And I thought, this old hag charged me $140 for her to give me a bunch of nonsense.
Wait, was this like a gypsy that had a crystal ball in a tent?
No, it was someone. I was living in Santa Cruz at the time, which I don't know. And she was, the name was given to me. Of course, there was no internet back then, by a few different people, but she was just horrible. I mean, everything she said was gloom and doom, and told me I'd be alone for the rest of my life. She did tell me I'd live till I was 90.
What the F-U-C-K?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I left there are you fucking kidding me? Great.
This is actually I would classify that as abusive, Because,
it was. Because for 11 years I worried.
Oh, God. And yet after all that, you didn't become completely cynical about the whole subject. So
no.
Good
I just I knew she was crazy.
This is like spiritual predation. It's almost, I would even almost go so far as to say this is a dark spiritualist, a dark medium, somebody who is
she wanted to hurt me.
Looking to hurt people, looking to destroy and control people, because this is what the dark spectrum likes to do.
That sounds like something where she would come back a little later and say, well, if you pay me, I'll get this resolved for you.
Yeah, doesn't it?
Yeah, she didn't say that. What she said is, the last thing she said to me was, you will be alone for the majority of your life. And, but I think you should get a few cats. I was I just looked at her, even though I knew that she was crazy, that thought in my head, she told me and my dad are really close. And she told me my dad was going to die by the time I was 30, and he was going to die first. And that worried me for 11 years. Anytime something was wrong with him, I was totally anxious about it.
And meanwhile, she's probably lonely and miserable and only has cats for company. And so she's projecting that onto other people.
I have 4 of them
in her life.
Yeah. It was sad because, it was sad. So I've never, ever gone to another one. I don't know. And I know that they're not the majority are not like that, but still she just ruined that experience for me.
Unbelievable. I'm really happy that you shared that, especially if I stick this one on YouTube, because I want people to hear that this is the stuff that happens and can happen in this field, even though there's real mediums and then the real stuff is happening all the time. It's also where literally the worst people in the world can dwell, is in this field. And so even the skeptics who, I believe John Edward to be a real medium, but South Park, they had an episode where they went into space, and so they had there was a competition or like a reality TV show put on by extraterrestrials, and it was who is the worst person in the universe. And so there was like, this is Arglak, the conqueror of Mar or something, like all these aliens. And they had, this is John Edward competing as the worst person in the universe. John Edward preys on people's grief to be, and then he wins the contest, right? So it was terrible for John Edward. Because I think John Edward is legitimate, but I can sympathize with that level of anger against mediums, despite the fact that a medium can also be, the greatest gift to society. So it's crazy. But like another thing though is that even a medium who is legit, we don't want to put them on a pedestal either, because that's a big problem. Because then we'll take the real, like somebody comes along with the real thing, really will connect us and has, will change our whole lives. And then we worship that person as a god or goddess. And that's also really bad news too. And because all they're doing is practicing a kind of telepathy, that's it. An intuitive telepathy and something an ability that we'll all have after we're dead, but they just learn how to do it on this side. So it's not actually that special. So let's see. All right, we're about close to ending, close to class time. Does anybody have any last thoughts about this topic? It seems like we all have a lot to say about this. Almost worth doing 2 classes about this. Not to put you on the spot, John, but you've been a bit quiet. Did you have any thoughts? If not, there's no pressure. You don't even have to say anything if you don't want to appear on camera. But if you did, the class is about to close.
I think your mic's off, John. It doesn't say it's muted, but I can't hear you.
I still can't hear you, John. Maybe you were trying to talk this whole class, John, and you're like, boy, Cyrus is rude tonight. He's just ignoring me. But actually, I have not. We apparently cannot hear you. There must be an audio issue. Definitely can happen, but no problem. All right, anybody else? Any last thoughts or questions?
I wouldn't mind you doing another class on the same thing. I missed some of it though too, but I mean, I think the topic, is quite big. We could, talk about it more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear what happens with the Sean stuff too.
Yeah, the Sean stuff, and for those watching, eventually I'll start kind of doing a whole thing about what the results are, but it's weird. It's pretty much all I can say. John, I see you coming in and out, like maybe you're resetting some stuff. Hey, John. I think your audio is still down. You have to go into the Zoom settings, probably figure out what's going on. I notice it's also 10 times harder if you have to be using like a laptop. Tablets and phones seems to just have no problem with Zoom. But I've had issues with Zoom deselecting my audio device and then putting it on default audio, which is no audio, and then nothing works. It made me go crazy in the past. Anyway, so I guess we're gonna finish up here. So if you guys are watching this on YouTube, if I put this on YouTube, then thanks. Please, you can get involved in these classes if you want to become a patron of Afterlife Topics. That's at the link in the description is patreon.com/Afterlife Topics. I'd love to have you here. Or join the Facebook group Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. And let's see, for next class, I haven't quite put that one down yet. I haven't been doing as many scheduled classes this month. I guess it kind of works out, though, because things have been a little bit unpredictable. Also, like with that Sean situation, even this class I wasn't anticipating to do. But there's one more class. Then the class after that this month will be like a Q&A class, and also a chance to get feedback and talk about future classes for the upcoming month. So anyway, I guess that's it, guys. Thanks for coming out. I should probably get to bed. And yeah, so I guess that's that.
All right.
You guys
Bye.
later.
See you guys.